ESBR Boxing. We are back, myself and Paul Kelly. We are here in preview mode. Two fights this week. Obviously, a bit of a quieter week considered compared to some of the ones we've obviously had recently, but we are no less weaker as a result. We have got world title action, and that is the way we're going to focus on in this first fight, or potentially the second fight, depending on the order that you're watching it. We're in the US. Shout out to the Ryder Cup lads beating the US the other week. But we're in the US for world middleweight action. Zhanibek versus Vincenzo Gualtieri. This is a unification fight for the IBF and WBO world middleweight titles. Paul, we don't like to obviously give too much for a breakdown tail of the tape here, but all that's really supposed to say on this one is that both men are undefeated. Gualtieri 21-0, 7 KOs, and Zhanibek, I believe 14-0 record with 9 KOs. Looking at both men, looking at what you know about them, the records that they've had, the fighters they've faced, and looking, I suppose, holistically at that middleweight division, some of the names down there, Charlo as well as another champion, obviously, and Lara as well. Other names kicking about potentially in that division who could be a threat would be, Eubank Jr., I suppose. Carlos Adama is still around there as well. Let's talk about Zhanibek. Do you think, first questions first, do you think that Zhanibek himself is the best in that division, best fighter in that middleweight division? And if so, do you see him reigning over that division for some years to come, or do you see anyone within those rankings that can possibly dethrone him?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Going straight in. Yeah, thanks for that intro, Elliot. I think Zhanibek is a scary fighter, in my opinion. I remember prior to the Denzel Bentley fight, which kudos to Bentley, he did really well and exceeded basically everybody's expectations, probably bar his own. Obviously was beaten, but I think he went the distance, if I'm not mistaken, in a fight that we thought was incredibly one-sided. I know you and I both thought that would end pretty quickly. Um, but again, it was another win for Zhanibek. He showed more tools to his arsenal, maybe not as explosive and didn't get the stoppage, but showed that even boxing wise, he's just incredible. For me, to answer your question, I think he is the best middleweight in the world, yes. And could he rule for years to come? I'm going to say yes as well. And the reason for that is, well, not the reason for that, sorry, but an interesting kind of caveat and narrative here is that if he does, then you've got a Kazakh fighter ruling for like the best part of a decade. You have Golovkin first, ruling middleweight, obviously until Canelo, but even at that, then Canelo went back up to super middle. So you're having a Kazakh fighter in Gennady Golovkin ruling at middleweight for years and years. And then now it's kind of the transition, I suppose. He's kind of handing the baton over to the next Kazakh fighter in Zhanibek. So yeah, I think he probably can rule the roost at 160 pounds for the next few years. There's some obviously really good fights to be made. This is a unification, obviously, as you mentioned as well. But it would not surprise me to see him win this unification bout, potentially become undisputed in the next 12 to 18 months. And yeah, I could see him ruling for the next couple of years. What about yourself?
You know what, Paul? I actually have to agree. I do think Kazakhstan will rule the middleweight division for the next couple of years. You know what? I didn't mind seeing out of some of those names I mentioned. I wouldn't actually mind seeing him potentially fight someone like Eubank, but I do think equally that that's at 160. Does Eubank want to go down there? I'm not sure, and I'm not sure actually if he did go down there that he would prevail against Zhanibek. But that'd be a nice fight that I actually would like to see. But like, I totally agree with you actually when it comes to the other champions. In that division, I think he'll clear through that division, frankly. And yeah, should those matches be made within the next sort of year, 18 months, or however long it takes. So yeah, I do think for the next couple of years at least, we'll be looking at Kazakhstan in the middleweight division. Paul, I just want to pick you up on something there we mentioned, which you mentioned previously around. Obviously, wasn't necessarily, I suppose, its destructive best against Denzel Bentley. You're actually also right in reminding viewers that I did suggest that Bentley would be decapitated in that fight fairly early, and it didn't happen. So, cool credit to him. But obviously, we've seen Zhanibek go the distance there, but obviously, a lot of stoppages on his record. Before that, obviously, we saw him do bad things with Danny Diggum. We also seen him recently KO Stephen Butler in the second round. Do you think that there's a KO coming in this fight? I don't necessarily go to predictions, but do you think that this is going to be a KO victory, or do you think there's a chance that Gualtieri or even Zhanibek himself will both see the final bell?
Yeah, it's an interesting one for me. I would probably have to lean towards a stoppage here, yeah. And listen, you and I, we love our boxing. Say that we know a fair bit about boxing, particularly British boxing, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm an expert on Vincenzo Gualtieri, or I can't even pronounce his name. Never mind watch his fights. So I've seen what in preparation for this. I've maybe seen the odd highlight. Won that title recently. Whether it was last time out or the time before that. But yeah, he's undefeated. But for me, again, you look at resume against resume, it's probably a bit padded. Gualtieri's resume for me. And for that reason, I favour Zhanibek to get the stoppage here. I think he's a frightening puncher, Zhanibek. And Gualtieri won't be there to survive. It's a unification. He'll feel that he can become the unified champion, obviously, and pull off the upset. But for me, I'm leaning towards the Kazakh man getting the stoppage. Probably, I'll probably come on to predictions in a bit, but I'll get more specific for that. But yeah, I probably can't favour stoppage here. Do you think that? Do you agree
Yeah,
with
well, I
me?
do think that.
Do you-
Yeah, I do think that. And like you said, we'll lean into predictions now, but I do think I'll start off by saying that I agree with you. I think Zhanibek KO is incoming here. I also fully agree with you when I look at Gualtieri's record, and it's not the best. Let's be perfectly honest with you. I mean, he's fought exclusively, well, up until this fight in Germany. Last time out, he won the title against a Brazilian with a 30-0 record. Brazilian's record was also, I mean, he hadn't gone 12 rounds before, had fought a load of guys that you've necessarily not even heard of with sort of like 50 and 17, 50 and 20 sort of records. So again, not the highest level. So yeah, I think Zhanibek's going to blast through him, Paul, to be perfectly honest with you. What round would I look at? To be honest with you, I can see something, if he's really going for it, I can see something sort of 3-4. I can see something like that sort of range, just literally just get in there and destroy him. But I've been bitten before by Zhanibek on the stoppage. So I might actually lean 4-5 if I had to do a 2-round range, just because I'm a bit wary of round 3 on there. But yeah, I think it's going to be, when I say early, I mean first half of the fight, stoppage for me, Zhanibek. Do you agree or do you disagree?
Mate, you know me. I'm a big fan of the second half of the fight stoppage, but I can't be backing that this time. I think it'll end within the first half as well, the first 6 rounds for me. Do you know what, mate? I really can't disagree with what you've said there. If I was going to pick a 3 round range, I would probably go 3, 4, or 5. Um, so yeah, probably around then. I'd actually maybe lean towards. I'll go 3 and 4 just so we have some type of disagreement rather than 4 and 5. But yeah, man, I fully expect a conclusive knockout here, and I would be surprised if we don't get it. Probably, with it being in Texas, this fight, we won't be watching the fight live. But if I'm tuning in on Sunday morning and I'm not going on Twitter and Zhanibek hasn't won by conclusive KO early on, I'll be very surprised. So yeah, it's a good fight on unification, but I think it's a unification that is incredibly winnable for Zhanibek.
No, I totally agree. And guys, look, Paul, that's what we've got time for this first fight. But we obviously said we've got a second fight coming up. We've got, I suppose, the newly announced um, um, super welterweight champion Tim Tszyu is also in our second preview against Mendoza in that fight. But guys, let us know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with myself and Paul, whether you think Zhanibek will baptize Gualtieri here for an early stoppage, or whether you think it might potentially go longer. Check out the channel, obviously, for other previews, written and digital multimedia content that we have on the channel. Paul, thank you very much for joining me. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.